The first time my mom rolled her eyes at me for crying, I was 9. I had scraped my knee trying to rescue a stray puppy tangled in chicken wire behind our neighbor's fence. I remember the blood, the sting of gravel, the terrified whimper of the dog, and my mom's voice, flat and impatient. "It's just a dog, Callie. You're not bleeding to death." She never got it. Never understood how animals made me feel seen, safe, like I mattered. So when I finally got Teddy, my golden retriever, at 14, it felt like I'd carved out a piece of happiness for myself. A soft, tail-wagging piece that didn't judge me when I was too quiet, or too tired, or too scared to speak up. Teddy wasn't just a dog. He was my everything. He followed me from room to room, slept at the foot of my bed, and would nudge my arm with his nose when I got too stuck in my head. I swear that dog could smell a panic attack coming before I even knew it. He was the only one who didn't make me feel like a burden in my own home. My mom always said I was too sensitive. She said it when I cried after getting called on in class. She said it when I asked her to stop reading my journal. She said it when I begged her to stop calling me slow in front of guests. "You need to toughen up, Callie," she'd snap. "The world won't baby you." But Teddy didn't want me to be tougher. He just sat with me. When I started working part-time at the animal shelter junior year, I saved every dime. I paid for Teddy's food, his shots, his flea meds, I even bought him a little raincoat when the storm started getting worse that spring. My mom made fun of me for it. "He's not your kid, Callie. You're acting obsessed." But I didn't care. He was mine. And when I came home from school, he'd be waiting at the door, tail wagging, like I was the most important person in the world. Until one day, he wasn't. It was a Thursday. I had stayed late after school to help organize a fundraiser with the Animal Rescue Club. I remember walking home, excited to give Teddy the peanut butter treat I'd tucked in my bag. I opened the front door and called out, "Teddy, come here, boy." Silence, no paws scrambling on hardwood, no thumping tail, no warm nose poking around the corner, just quiet. I checked every room, the backyard, the garage, nothing. Panic bloomed in my chest. I stormed into the kitchen, where my mom was casually pouring herself a glass of iced tea. "Where's Teddy?" I asked, heart in my throat. She didn't even flinch. "Oh, I gave him away." I stared at her, convinced I'd heard wrong. "You, what?" "You're always so busy with school and work," she said, shrugging. "You didn't have time for him. I gave him to a family with a backyard and little kids. He'll be fine." I couldn't breathe. "You gave away my dog without asking me." He was living in my house, eating my food. I had every right. I felt the heat rise up my neck. "He was mine, Mom. I paid for everything. I took care of him." She waved her hand like I was a mosquito buzzing near her ear. "You're overreacting. He's just a pet." That sentence broke something in me. He wasn't just a pet. He was the only one who stayed with me through everything. Through late nights crying, through panic attacks, through the loneliest parts of high school. And she gave him away, like he was some old sweater she didn't want cluttering the hallway. I didn't cry that night. Not in front of her. I locked my door and curled up on my bed where Teddy used to sleep, clutching the leash I hadn't realized I still had, hanging on my desk chair. I stayed up all night replaying every moment with him. His goofy smile, the way he sneezed when he was excited, the way he'd rest his chin on my knee when he sensed something was wrong. The next morning, I was different. Colder, clearer. Because if she wanted to play legal owner, I'd fight her on her terms. I pulled out the manila folder where I kept everything. Adoption papers, signed by me. Signed by me. Vet bills in my name. Receipts from PetSmart Bank, transfers from my paycheck for his care. I had proof. She thought I was just a dumb teenager, that I'd accept it and move on. But I was done being quiet. I started with small claims court, but the lawyer I consulted, Ms. Ramos, one of Grandma's friends, told me something I hadn't expected. Technically, if your mother gave the dog away without your consent, and you can prove ownership, that's theft of personal property. I blinked. "So I can press charges?" "You could, or We could take a different route. Ms. Ramos helped me draft a cease and desist. We sent it to the family who had Teddy. Turns out they were distant friends of my mom's from a neighboring town. They had no idea I hadn't consented. They felt horrible. Within 3 days, they agreed to return him. But I didn't stop there. I filed a civil suit against my mom for theft, emotional distress, loss of property. She laughed when the papers came in the mail. You're suing your own mother over a dog? I looked her in the eye and said, no, I'm holding you accountable for what you did to me. She tried to fight it at first, but the evidence was too solid. The judge didn't even let it drag on. He ordered her to pay for all legal fees and damages, and in his final statement, he said, pets are not just property. They are emotional companions. What you did was not only illegal, it was cruel. I didn't smile when the verdict came. I didn't high-five anyone. I just picked up Teddy from the family's house that afternoon, buckled him into the passenger seat, and drove away with the windows down. He barked once, then curled up with his head in my lap. I whispered, I'm sorry. He licked my hand like he forgave me instantly. And what did I take from her in the end? Not just a court ruling, not just money. I took the heirloom necklace she loved, the one passed down from her mother, because it had been put in my name for insurance years ago. She forgot, but the insurance company did. When she screamed about it, I just said, it's just a thing, Mom. You'll get over it. I didn't think I'd cry when I saw him again, but the second Teddy stepped out of the car and ran toward me, ears flying, tail wagging, so hard his whole body wobbled, ugly, chest-hiccuping sobs right there on the sidewalk in front of the neighbor's house. I dropped to my knees, and he bowled me over like I'd never left. He remembered me, he forgave me, he came home. I hugged him like I'd never let go again, and I didn't plan to. The family who had him, Dana and Greg, were kind, honest, shocked to learn they'd been given a stolen dog. Dana hugged me with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry. Your mom said you were going away to college and didn't want him. I shook my head. That's not true. She lied. They handed me the food bowl, leash, toys they'd bought, even the bag of treats they hadn't opened. Teddy climbed into my car like he knew the way. We didn't speak on the drive home, but when I glanced at him at a red light, he was watching me, like he knew something had changed. And it had. My mom was standing in the doorway when I pulled up. She saw him jump out and stiffened. You went behind my back, she said, arms crossed. No, I said, leash in hand. You did. You embarrassed me, she hissed. Sending legal letters to people I know, suing your own family? I clipped the leash to Teddy's collar. You stopped being family the second you gave him away. Her face twitched, and she opened her mouth to fire back. But then she saw what was hanging around my neck. The locket. It was old gold delicate, the kind passed down for generations. Her mother's, and then for insurance purposes mine. My grandmother, her mother left it in my name after their final fight, saying, I want it to go to someone with a heart, someone who loves deeply, not loudly. She'd meant me, but my mom always believed it would come back to her. When I turned 18, I had it appraised, insured, legally filed in my name. She never asked, until she saw it on my neck. You're wearing my locket. I didn't blink. No, I'm wearing what belongs to me. You just assumed it was yours like everything else. She didn't speak to me for the rest of the day, which honestly was a gift. Teddy settled in quickly, found his spot under my desk like he never left, brought me the squeaky carrot toy I'd bought him months ago, like it was a peace offering. He was home, and I was tired of pretending I owed anything to the person who took him from me. A week later I got the call. Small claims ruled in my favor. My mom owed me $1,200 in legal fees, $800 in damages, and would have a record of a civil suit filed against her. She blew up my phone that afternoon. First the angry texts. You've humiliated me. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me. You're just like your father. Then came the guilt. You're breaking this family apart. You'll regret this one day. I just wanted what was best. Finally, the silence. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I went to the park with Ted. The thing about quiet revenge is that it doesn't always feel good at first. There's no standing ovation, no grand finale, just silence where there used to be shouting. It's weird and peaceful and terrifying. But I was learning to breathe in that silence, to take up space in it, to realize that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it signs a court order and walks away. School started again, senior year. People had heard. Apparently, word had spread from my mom's friends to their kids, to the halls of my high school. At lunch one day, a girl I barely knew, Krista, sat down across from me. "I heard you sued your mom," she said, not unkindly. "I did," I said, chewing my sandwich. She was quiet for a second, then, "I wish I had your guts. My stepdad sold my cat last year, said we didn't need pets anymore. I still have her picture in my locker." I looked at her. "That's not okay." She nodded. "I know, but my mom told me to let it go." I pulled off a piece of crust and handed it to Teddy under the table. "You don't have to," I said, "ever." After that, more people came forward. Quietly. At lockers. In the hallway. After class. My dad put my dog down without telling me. My mom gave away my hamster when I went to summer camp. They said it was just an animal, but I cried for weeks. So many kids. So many stories. And every single one ended the same way. They said I was being dramatic. That word, dramatic. I started writing an essay about it, titled it, Dramatic. The word they use when you're hurting in a way they don't want to see. My English teacher loved it. Told me to submit it to a youth magazine. I did. They published it. And then the editor emailed me. "Your piece sparked the most reader responses we've seen all year. Thank you for giving so many kids language for what they've felt alone in." When the check came from the magazine, I didn't spend it on clothes or video games like my classmates. I bought a custom leather collar for Teddy, engraved with a silver tag that read, "Teddy loved, fought home." My mom never apologized, but she did stop talking about the locket. I wore it every day, not to hurt her, but to remind myself that love, when it's real, doesn't have to be loud, just steady. Like a leash in your hand, like a heartbeat under fur, like a dog who always comes back, even when others throw him away. I stopped needing her approval, stopped trying to fix things she kept breaking, stopped letting her define what I was allowed to grieve, because I wasn't a burden. I wasn't dramatic, and I wasn't wrong for loving loudly when everyone else whispered. There's a difference between being ignored and being erased. Ignored is when your mom pretends not to hear you calling for her from the hallway. Erased is when she packs up the leash, the dog bowls, and every trace of your best friend before you even get home. Like he never existed at all. That's what I woke up to every day. The spot on the floor where Teddy's bed used to be, gone. His name tag magnet on the fridge, gone. The framed photo of us at the park, replaced with a picture of her and my brother at some backyard barbecue I wasn't invited to. It was like she wanted to wipe him off the map. Like giving him away wasn't enough. She had to make it look like he'd never mattered. But the funny thing about trying to erase someone, the people who truly love them always remember. And I remembered everything. I remember Teddy curling into a ball at my feet when I studied for exams. I remember the way his ears perked up when I said walk, even in a whisper. I remember the night I had a panic attack and he pawed at my door until I let him in, then curled around me like a heartbeat, in fur. So no, he wasn't just a pet. And now that I had him back, I wasn't going to let her do it again. I installed a lock on my door. Not a flimsy push button, a real one, keyed. When my mom noticed it, she scoffed. "You're locking yourself in now? What, am I a danger to you?" I didn't even look up from my textbook. "No, but you're a danger to the things I care about." She slammed the door and didn't speak to me for a day and a half. It used to shake me when she gave me the silent treatment. I'd try to fix things, make her laugh, prove I was worth noticing, but not anymore. Let her sit in her silence. I was done performing. That week I started building something new. It wasn't a club. Not exactly. It was a student support group. Kids who had gone through something like I had. I posted a flyer with a simple question at the top. Did they call it just a pet when it broke your heart? I left a QR code and my initials. Within 2 days I had 11 messages. We met in the library after school on Fridays. There was Noah, whose dad took their dog to the shelter after he failed a math test. Riley, whose mom rehomed her cat while she was at her dad's for the summer. Jordan, who'd lost 2 turtles because they didn't match the new furniture. Each story made me want to scream. But instead, I let them talk. And I took notes. We didn't cry at those meetings. Not always. Sometimes we laughed. Other times, we sat in quiet and passed around a dog-eared notebook to write things we were too scared to say out loud. By week 3, we called ourselves the Unforgotten. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Clevens, pulled me aside after hearing about the group. "I'm proud of you," she said. "What you're doing. It's important." I nodded, feeling something I hadn't in a long time seen. Then she reached into her desk drawer and handed me a small booklet. Pet Loss and Emotional Trauma in Teens, it said. I looked up. She smiled softly. "It's real, Callie. What you went through. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I didn't cry until I got to the last page. A quote in bold italics read, "Sometimes the softest things teach us the loudest lessons." At home, things stayed cold. My mom barely looked at me, but she did keep glancing at the locket. One night, I caught her standing outside my door, eyes on the glint of it around my neck through the crack as I brushed my hair. She didn't say a word, but I saw it. Regret, not for what she did to me, but for what she lost because of it. Then came the envelope, folded, unmarked, slid under my bedroom door. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Inside was a note in her handwriting. "If you want to be so independent, fine. Pay rent." Below it, a list, $200 month. No guests overnight, no animals on furniture, no talking back, no signature, no kindness, just rules. I stared at the paper. She wasn't trying to rebuild. She was punishing me for standing up to her. And the best part, I didn't need her anymore. I went to Grandma's house the next morning. Teddy in tow, backpack over my shoulder. She opened the door, saw me, and stepped aside like she'd been waiting. "You don't even have to explain," she said, pulling me in. "Room's ready." Teddy jumped onto the floral couch like he belonged there. Because he did, and so did I. I still went to school, still ran the Unforgot, but I didn't go back to that house. Not even when my mom called 3 days later and said, "You're acting like I'm some kind of villain." I said nothing. She kept going. "I took care of you your whole life. A dog comes before your own mother now?" And I replied, calm, steady, "No, but love comes before control." And I hung up. That winter, I submitted an op-ed to the local paper, titled it, "When They Say It's Just a Pet, What They Mean Is You Don't Matter." They ran it front and center, in the Sunday edition. Miss Clevens called to say it was already being passed around the district office. Krista cried when she read it and said, "It's the first time I felt like someone got it. I didn't write it to be praised. I wrote it to be heard." 1 week later, I got a certified letter from a law office. I thought for a second, maybe my mom was countersuing. But no, it was a notice. Apparently, my grandmother had changed the beneficiary on her small inheritance years ago to me, not my mom. And with it came a note she'd written in shaky cursive. "For the girl who knows how to love even after being unloved, use this to build something real, something that's only yours." It wasn't much, but it was mine. And suddenly, I had options. I opened a savings account, started looking at dog-friendly apartments near the local college, began dreaming again, not about escaping, but about thriving. Because for the first time, I wasn't just surviving my mother's house, I was replacing it with a home where love wasn't conditional, where my voice wasn't a threat, and where no one could ever give away what I held dear again. And it all started the day I said, "He's not just a pet, he's mine." Some people break your heart once. My mom broke mine in layers. The first time was when she gave away Teddy without a word. The second was when she tried to erase his memory from our home. And the third, when she told me flat out that love wasn't a reason to fight. People come and go, Callie, she said. Don't get so attached. But the truth is, I do get attached to people, to places, to promises. And I'm not ashamed of that anymore. Living with Grandma felt like waking up from a long, cold sleep. There were blankets folded at the foot of my bed before I even got out of it. There was breakfast waiting. Sometimes oatmeal, sometimes cinnamon toast. Always warm, always quiet. No snide comments. No backhanded guilt. Just a kind of silence that felt safe, not sharp. Even Teddy seemed more relaxed. He didn't follow me around nervously anymore. He sprawled out like he belonged. Because he did. One afternoon, I came home from school and found a little envelope on my pillow, Grandma's handwriting on the front. Inside was a note that read, "This isn't just a place to crash. This is your home too, Callie. And if you want to stay, we'll make room for you and for Teddy." I pressed it to my chest and cried. Not because I was sad, but because someone had finally made space for me, without asking me to shrink first. That weekend, I took Teddy on a walk through the neighborhood. It was chilly, the kind of autumn that crunches beneath your feet. Every yard was filled with pumpkins and wind chimes, and the air smelled like firewood. I walked past my old house without meaning to. My mom's car was parked outside, but all the windows were drawn. Something about that struck me. The closeness of it, the way the curtains sagged like even the fabric was tired of pretending. For the first time, I didn't want to knock, not out of fear, out of peace. I had nothing left to say. She texted me that night. "So I guess you've chosen Grandma over your own mother." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, "I chose someone who chooses me." She didn't respond. At school, things kept shifting. The group I started, the Unforgotten, was now official. We got a bulletin board outside the library, a place where students could post pet pictures, lost stories, letters to animals they missed. One note broke me. "You were my best friend, Cooper. They said you were too loud, but you never made me feel alone." Someone had taped a photo of a beagle underneath it, crumpled, but still smiling. I pinned a sticker that read, "You mattered," beside it, because I meant it. We started organizing a fundraiser for the local animal shelter, bake sales, bracelet making, even a calendar featuring rescue pets. To my shock, Mrs. Clevens nominated me for a Youth Leadership Award. Said my work was community changing. Me, the quiet girl. The girl with the dog and the locked bedroom door. But not everyone was happy about it. My mom found out, of course she did. She showed up at the school office one afternoon while I was helping organize donation bins. I was called to the front unexpectedly, and there she stood, arms folded, mouth tight. "I just wanted to say congratulations," she said, lips barely moving. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice even. She stepped closer. "You act like you built all this from pain," she hissed quietly. "But if I hadn't done what I did, none of this would have happened." "Maybe I helped you," I blinked. "You think giving away my dog helped me?" She smirked. "It toughened you up." I stared at her. This woman who still thought she was the reason for my success. "No," I said. "Teddy helped me survive you. That's not the same thing." Her mouth opened, then closed. I turned to the receptionist. "Can I go back to class?" She nodded. "Absolutely." And I left her standing there. That night, Grandma baked a lemon pound cake. She always did that when something felt off, like she could feel my stress in the air. I sat at the counter while she poured the batter into a pan. She didn't ask what happened. Instead, she said, "You can't teach someone to feel remorse who only wants control." I nodded. "She still thinks she's the reason I'm doing well. Like everything I built was because she hurt me." Grandma looked up. "Maybe it was. But that doesn't make her right. It makes you strong." That stuck with me, because I used to think being strong meant pretending I wasn't hurt. Now I knew it meant healing anyway. Teddy and I developed a rhythm: morning walks, homework under his chin, evenings curled up reading while he snored like a lawnmower. We were a team again. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, Grandma knocked on my door. She held up a manila envelope. "This came for you." Inside was a certified letter from a lawyer. Oh God, I thought, she's suing me back. But no, it was a request. My mother wanted to schedule mediation, not court, the letter read. She would like to resolve matters through a family mediator in a neutral setting. I sat on the bed, stunned. She wants to talk? Grandma raised an eyebrow. She wants control back. Talking's just the bait. Still I went. Not for her, for me. Because part of taking your power back is knowing when you're strong enough to sit across from the thing that tried to break you and not flinch. The mediation office was beige and too cold. My mom sat stiffly across the table, lips pressed together like she was trying not to spit. The mediator, an older woman with soft eyes, welcomed us. "Let's begin by acknowledging what brought us here." I said nothing. My mom jumped in. She humiliated me, took my dog and my necklace and made me look like a monster. The mediator turned to me. "Callie, would you like to respond?" I took a deep breath. I didn't make her look like anything. She did that herself. I just stopped hiding it. Silence. My mom narrowed her eyes. "You're not a victim." I nodded. "You're right. I'm not. Not anymore." The rest of the meeting was a blur of half apologies and strained silences. At the end, the mediator asked if we'd like to agree on next steps. I stood. "My next step is graduation," and I'm walking across that stage with the dog you gave away and the locket you thought you still owned. I looked her straight in the eye. "You don't get to write my story anymore." Then I left. In the parking lot, I texted Grandma, "It's done. I'm coming home." She replied with a heart. That night, Teddy and I lay on the floor, the locket resting on my chest. It caught the light from the window, tiny glimmers reflecting on the wall. It didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like peace, like the storm had finally passed. Graduation came faster than I expected, maybe because I was busy. Busy healing, busy helping others, busy living a life I wasn't sure I'd ever get to have. Teddy sat with me every night while I wrote my valedictorian speech. Yeah, valedictorian. The girl who once hid in the bathroom to avoid presentations was now giving a speech in front of hundreds of people, and I knew exactly what I wanted to say. The day before the ceremony, my mom sent me a text. "Am I even allowed to come? Or will you have me arrested for breathing?" I didn't respond, not out of pettiness. I just didn't want to waste breath on someone who only spoke to twist a knife. Grandma, on the other hand, ironed my gown and curled the edges of my note cards. She was more excited than I was. "Your mama's gonna hear about this one way or another," she said, smiling. Might as well give her something to be jealous of. Teddy couldn't come to graduation, obviously, but that morning I clipped a tiny photo of him to the inside of my gown, right over my heart, because he got me through everything, and I wasn't crossing that stage without him. The auditorium was packed. My hands shook as I stood behind the podium. The mic squeaked. A few kids in the back laughed, but I cleared my throat and began. They said I was too quiet, too sensitive, that I cared too much about things that didn't matter. But the things we're told to stop caring about are usually the things that make us who we are. For me, it was a dog, a golden retriever named Teddy, who taught me how to breathe again. When the world made it too hard, the room was silent. Even the ones who used to whisper behind my back were listening now. I was told I was being dramatic, that I'd get over it, that it was just a pet. But what they didn't understand was this. It's not about the pet. It's about the love, the loyalty, the safety. And when someone takes that from you, it teaches you what kind of person you never want to be. Someone sniffled in the front row. I smiled gently. "So to everyone who's ever been told their pain was too small to matter, I see you. I believe you. And you're not too much. You were just surrounded by people who gave too little." The crowd rose to their feet, and I finally felt seen. Later, as we gathered outside for photos, a teacher pulled me aside. "Your mom showed up," she whispered. "She wasn't on the guest list, so the admin asked her to leave." I blinked. "She came? She didn't make a scene, just stood by the back wall. Left before you started speaking." I nodded. "She still can't stay for the parts where I shine." I didn't cry. I didn't feel sorry. She chose her path, and I chose mine. The next week, I got a letter from the Youth Writers Foundation. I'd been awarded a small scholarship for my essay. When they say it's just a pet. It was being taught in 2 local schools as part of a new empathy curriculum. I held the letter in shaking hands. Grandma read over my shoulder and whispered, "You turned pain into purpose, baby. That's rare." Teddy barked from the foot of the bed like he agreed. With the scholarship and a few more donations from the unforgotten, I applied for an apartment near my college. Dog-friendly, of course. Tiny. Just 1 bedroom. But mine. Moving day came. Grandma cried. Teddy licked her cheek like he knew she needed comfort. She handed me a small box before I left. Inside was a photo of me as a toddler with my arms around a chubby golden retriever puppy. "Your first dog," she said. "You barely remember him, but he protected you when your mom wouldn't." I pressed the frame to my heart. Thank you for remembering when she didn't. The apartment was old but clean. Sunlight hit the kitchen at 10 a.m. every morning. Teddy loved the little balcony. He'd sit out there like a king on his throne, watching birds and judging squirrels. It was peace. Earned peace, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. Then one day, the email came from an animal welfare nonprofit. They'd read my graduation speech. Someone had shared a clip online. They wanted to feature me in a youth spotlight. Not just the story, but me. "Would you be open to an interview?" the woman wrote. "Your voice could help so many." I stared at the screen. Then I looked at Teddy. He tilted his head, and I said, "Let's do it." The interview was over Zoom. I wore a simple shirt, pulled my hair back. Teddy sat calmly behind me like a co-host. They asked about my story, the lawsuit, the group, the healing. I told the truth, but I also told the after. The part where I learned that taking back your power doesn't mean becoming loud, it means becoming clear. The video went viral. Thousands of comments, messages from kids, parents, even teachers. "Thank you for validating what my family never would." I thought I was the only one. This made me cry in the best way. Even a message from someone unexpected. "Krista, from high school. Hey, I saw your interview. Just wanted to say thank you. You helped me more than you know." And then one more. Anonymous account. No profile pic. Just this. "I still don't think I was wrong, but I hope you're happy." It didn't say who it was, but I knew. And for the first time, I didn't care what she thought, because I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing it for the kid I used to be, the one who sat alone in her room, clutching a leash and wondering why love wasn't enough, the one who cried into a pillow because no one listened, the one who made a promise. If I ever get out, I'll help someone else find the way too. And I did. The thing about finally having peace is that you start to notice just how noisy life used to be. Not literal noise, but that mental pressure, that constant tension of waiting for someone's mood to swing, their voice to rise, their next demand. In Grandma's house, that pressure had faded, and now in my own space, with Teddy curled up by the window and quiet music playing while I studied, I felt like I could exhale fully for the first time in years. I didn't flinch when my phone buzzed anymore, because now I could choose who got access to me. And more, I was choosing peace. After the interview aired, everything picked up speed. A nonprofit offered to sponsor The Unforgotten as an official high school program across the district. They said my story was the reason they'd rewritten their entire youth trauma curriculum. The school board invited me to speak at a community event on emotional resilience. And one afternoon, I got an email I couldn't believe. TEDx Youth. Would you like to share your story on stage? I reread it 3 times. Then I turned to Teddy and said, guess we're not done yet. That same week, my mom messaged me again. You should be thanking me. If I hadn't toughened you up, you wouldn't be where you are. No apology, no acknowledgement. Still the same old delusion that breaking me somehow built me. I didn't reply. But I did save the message, not for revenge, just to remind myself what silence had protected me from. I was no longer angry. That was the scariest part for her, I think, because angry people still care enough to fight. But I had moved past caring what she thought, and that was power. The TEDx event was held in a small theater near campus. Nothing flashy, just a red rug, a mic, and rows of folding chairs. Before going on stage, I slipped my fingers into my pocket. Teddy's photo, the tiny collar tag I'd saved from when he was a puppy, and the locket around my neck, cold and steady against my skin. I stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright, but I wasn't nervous, because I knew who I was now, and she didn't get to define me anymore. When I was 17, I began. My mother gave away my dog without asking. She called him just a pet. But that dog had licked the tears off my face when I thought no one else saw me. He was my anchor in a house that kept trying to drown me. And when she took him, she didn't just steal a dog, she stole the one safe thing in my life. The room was silent, so I did what people didn't expect. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I got legal documents. I got a lawyer, and I got him back. A few people clapped softly. I also got a lot of hate. People said I overreacted, that I was ungrateful, that family should be forgiven, no matter what. I looked out at the crowd, but forgiveness without accountability isn't love, and silence in the face of harm isn't strength. By the time I stepped off the stage, I was shaking, not from nerves, but from release. A man in the front row stood and wiped his eyes. A teacher whispered, "Thank you." A girl about 14 ran up and said, "My stepmom gave away my rabbit last year. Everyone told me to get over it, but I never did. And now I know I didn't have to." I knelt to her level. "You don't get over it," I said. "You carry it with you, and it becomes your armor." That night, I sat on my apartment floor with Teddy beside me. I played the video of my talk once, just once. Then I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. "I did it," I whispered. He nuzzled my knee, and I believed it. Days later, the story made local news again. A journalist connected the TEDx clip with the court records and printed a feature titled, "The Girl Who Took Her Dog Back and Her Power." It went viral, and that's when the cracks in my mom's mask finally started to show. I started getting messages from old family friends. "Your mom's been telling people you lied. She said the court didn't really side with you. She said you exaggerated everything." I sighed. People like her can't stand losing the narrative, especially not to someone they once controlled. But the truth was out there now, and the internet doesn't forget. Then I got the email that stunned me. From Dana, the woman my mom originally gave Teddy to. She'd watched the TEDx video and reached out. "Callie, I just want to say, I had no idea how deep it went. Your mom told us you were too unstable to care for a dog. I feel so sick knowing I believed her." I blinked at the screen. I hadn't expected that. But Dana didn't stop there. "If you ever want help sharing your story wider, my brother works in broadcast journalism. He'd love to talk to you." I stared at the message and slowly typed back, "Yeah, I think I'm ready." The interview aired on a small national segment about youth advocacy and legal awareness. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest, raw. They let me speak freely, and I said what needed to be said. You can love someone who hurt you, but you don't have to let them keep doing it. My mom's response came the way I expected, through someone else. My aunt called out of nowhere, "Callie, your mom's a wreck, says you're making her look bad. She wants to talk." I sighed. She had years to talk. "She says she didn't know it mattered that much. She didn't care if it did. She's family," my aunt said, softer now. I paused. "No," I said. She's a woman who gave away my dog and called it a favor? Family wouldn't do that. Click. I didn't say it with hate, I said it with clarity. And that's what made it stick. Later that month, the locket broke. The little clasp snapped off while I was dressing. Just a tiny crack, but it felt strange. I looked at it for a long time in my hand. Then I walked to my desk drawer, placed it gently inside, and closed it. Not to forget it, but because I didn't need to wear it anymore. The locket had belonged to her. The story had belonged to me. And now I was writing new ones. With Teddy. With peace. With a future that didn't include anyone who thought I was too sensitive for having a heart. I always thought closure would feel like slamming a door. Loud. Final. Like a courtroom gavel. Like raised voices and dramatic exits. But it didn't. For me, closure came like fog lifting. One slow breath at a time. One morning, waking up without checking my phone for her name. One afternoon realizing I hadn't thought about her at all. It had been almost a year since the lawsuit. Almost a year since I brought Teddy home, leash trembling in my hand. Now he slept curled against the back of the couch, snoring gently while I worked on my college essay. The prompt was, "Tell us about a time you stood up for something that mattered." I didn't even hesitate. I started my essay with the words, "I sued my mother when I was 17. And then I told them why. Not out of bitterness, but out of truth. I didn't write about revenge. I wrote about protection. I wrote about learning that sometimes love means drawing a line so sharp, even family can't step over it without consequences. The essay was raw. I cried while typing parts of it. Paused when I described the moment I saw Teddy come running back to me. His tail wagged like a metronome, keeping time with my heartbeat. I don't remember standing. I just remember falling to my knees and realizing he never stopped waiting. 2 weeks later, I was called into the college counselor's office. "You're not going to believe this," she said, handing me a packet. I opened it and saw the school letterhead, "Full ride, all 4 years, based on academics." And "I hope you bring Teddy to campus sometime," she said with a wink. I laughed through tears. "Trust me, he's not missing a minute of it." Meanwhile, Grandma's health had started to fade just a little. Not serious, but the stairs were getting harder, and her hands didn't grip quite the same. So I started cooking dinners. She'd sit at the kitchen table with a crossword puzzle while I tried and failed not to burn garlic bread. "You're a better daughter to me than mine ever was," she said one night. I looked over. She wasn't joking. And I said quietly, "That's because you let me be myself." She smiled. Then I did at least one thing right. One Saturday morning, while going through old boxes in Grandma's garage, I found something I hadn't seen in years. An old wooden jewelry box. Inside was a faded envelope, with my name scrawled on it in sharp cursive. Not Grandma's handwriting. It was my mother's. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, written when I was a baby. "Dear Callie, I don't know who you'll grow up to be. I just hope you don't grow up to hate me. I hope I give you more laughter than pain. I hope you love me the way I love you, without question. But I'm scared. Scared I'll mess you up. Scared I'm too much like my own mother. Scared I won't know when I've gone too far. Love, your mom." I stood in the garage, frozen. She knew, even back then, she was afraid she'd become what she did. And she still let it happen. I put the letter back in the box. Not out of anger, but because it belonged to another version of her. A version that never made it past her fears. I didn't show Grandma. Didn't bring it up. Some things are meant to be laid to rest quietly. Just like the parts of yourself that loved someone who couldn't love you without hurting you. The fundraiser for the shelter reached its goal that spring. The Unforgotten donated enough to help expand their intake center and build a small outdoor dog run. They named it Teddy's Yard. I went to the ribbon cutting in my favorite yellow sweater, the one Teddy always tried to nap on, and watched kids run with puppies under the afternoon sun. It didn't feel like the end of anything. It felt like something I never expected. A beginning. Later, I stood near the fence with my notebook, watching a little girl in pigtails chase a golden retriever mix through the grass. Her mom came over, smiling. "Beautiful speech today," she said. "And thank you for everything you've done." I nodded shyly. She looked at the girl playing. "We lost our dog 2 years ago. Took her a while to open up again," I said. "I get that. I was like that too." She tilted her head. "What changed?" I smiled. "He came back." I didn't have to explain what I meant, because she just nodded, eyes shining, and whispered, "Good." Back at home, I curled up on the couch, Teddy's chin on my lap, Grandma flipping channels beside me. She paused on a news segment about youth advocates and education. Suddenly, my name appeared on screen. She gasped. "Callie." I laughed. I didn't know they were airing it already. The camera panned across photos of my group, of Teddy in his red collar, of me speaking at the TEDx stage. Then the anchor said, "Callie Blake, a student activist from Westlake, changed not just her life, but the way local schools understand loss, trauma, and healing." Grandma teared up. Teddy sneezed. I smiled, because in that moment, I knew I didn't just get my dog back. I got me back, and no one, not even my mother, could take that again. The summer before college felt like standing in the eye of a storm that had already passed. Everything was calm, but I remembered what it took to get here. And I didn't take a single second of it for granted. I took Teddy on walks around the neighborhood we'd made ours. I wrote thank you cards to the teachers who had stood by me when no one else did. And I spent quiet afternoons with Grandma, shelling peas on the porch and watching the sunset like it was something sacred. Because for the first time in my life, it was. Then one afternoon, Grandma sat me down at the kitchen table. She pushed a manila folder across to me. "I want you to have this," she said. Inside were documents, legal ones, a will, a trust, a letter from her lawyer. I blinked at the numbers. My name. "Grandma," she held up a hand. "No arguments. I'm not going anywhere yet, but I want everything clear. When the time comes, I want the house to be yours. Fully. No one contesting it." I stared at her, stunned. She gave me a small smile. "And yes," she added, "I've already made sure your mother can't touch a cent of it." It hit me like a tidal wave. Not the money, the trust, the unshakable, generous trust of someone who believed I'd do right by what she gave me. "I won't let you down," I whispered. "You never have," she replied. The house was old. The plumbing needed help. The windows stuck in summer, but it was home, and now it was legally mine. It wasn't just a roof. It was a sanctuary. I turned the guest room into a creative space, painted the walls pale blue, hung my award certificates, shelved my journals, taped Polaroids of me and Teddy on a corkboard. I framed the article titled, "The Girl Who Took Her Dog Back and Her Power." Underneath it, I placed a quote. "What they tried to steal wasn't just a pet, it was my right to love without fear." Then one morning, I got a letter, a physical one, from my mother, just my name on the front. No return address. I stared at it for 10 minutes before opening it. Inside, one sheet of paper. No greeting. "Your grandmother is rewarding you for punishing me. You'll never know what it's like to be a mother. And when you lose something you love, I hope you remember this moment." That was it. No apology, no ownership, just poison. I didn't respond. Instead, I took the letter outside and lit a match, watched it curl and burn in the fire-safe dish Grandma kept for old check. When it was ash, I whispered, "You already lost me. You just never noticed." Later that week, I did something I'd been thinking about for a long time. I took the necklace, the one my mom had screamed about in court, and visited a local jeweler. It was real gold, delicate, timeless, but I didn't want her name etched into my skin anymore. I asked the jeweler to melt it down and remake it into a small pendant. A dog paw. Inside the paw, my name, not hers. When I picked it up, I held it to my chest and exhaled. It wasn't a trophy. It was a reminder that even something broken, something once weaponized, could be transformed into a symbol of freedom. The night before I moved into the dorms, Grandma and I sat on the porch. Teddy lay at our feet, tail flicking in his sleep. "You sure you're ready?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm not running anymore. I'm walking toward." She smiled, eyes glassy. "That's all I ever wanted for you." College was different. Louder, busier, but not overwhelming. Because I had roots now. A center, a compass. I printed out a photo of me, Grandma, and Teddy, hung it over my bed. Underneath, I taped a quote from the youth shelter wall. They took everything they thought mattered, but they forgot I still had myself. I majored in psychology, minored in animal science, started a club for emotional support, pet advocacy. And every time someone whispered, "That's the girl from the story," I didn't shrink. I smiled, because yes, I had earned every line of that story. Teddy got older. His fur grayed, his steps slowed, but he still wagged his tail when I said his name, still rested his chin on my knee during late-night study sessions, still listened when I needed to cry without explanation. He made it to my junior year. When the vet told me it was time, I held him close, heartbreaking, and whispered, "You were never just a pet. You were my home, my rescue, my reminder that love never needed permission." I buried him in Grandma's backyard, planted forget-me-not, engraved a small stone that read, "Teddy, you wait for me, and I'll carry you forever." My mom never reached out again. Maybe she saw the news story about the shelter expansion. Maybe she heard that I was speaking at national conferences now. Maybe she just ran out of people who'd listen. I'll never know, and I don't need to. Because what I needed was never her validation. What I needed was me, and I finally had her.